What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show. Jay Gruden has been fired by the Washington Redskins as head coach, and he's been replaced by interim head coach Bill Callahan for the next 11 games of the season. This was something that had to be done. Everybody like myself has said that Jay Gruden needed to be fired, but there's a couple things that I want to actually cover because I think that a lot of times people are taking us saying that he should be fired as almost like he's not a good guy. Now, I want to separate those two because I don't want people to sit up here and think that because he's not good as a head coach, that doesn't still mean that he's not a good guy. It's just that sometimes when you're a head coach, sometimes you can't always be the good guy. Sometimes you have to be the bad guy. Sometimes you become friends with people and you just have to fire them because of the fact that they're not doing their job properly. But I also want people to understand that with that being the case, there's been a lot of decisions where Jay Gruden has thought with his heart because he's thinking about being a good guy and hasn't thought about thinking with his head because of the fact that he had to make very tough decisions that would impact not only his friends, but also would impact the team. So I'll give you several examples. One, the hiring of Joe Barry. Everybody around the league knew that Joe Barry was not a quality defensive coordinator. 2 years prior, he had just led a Detroit Lions defense that went 0-16. It made no sense because Joe Barry was his friend that he would sit up there and make it a point of trying to, hire him for a job that he wasn't any good at. So people have to understand that is one of the decisions he made. Another one is keeping Greg Minuski on board. Greg Minuski is a terrible defensive coordinator. He doesn't really do a lot of things that makes any sense. So in turn, he made a very bad coaching decision with that because Greg Minuski, should have been fired last year, but he probably should have been fired the year before that. And he didn't do it. Then you think about his obsession with Colt McCoy. Like he just had this undeniable obsession that Colt McCoy knew his offense. Colt McCoy is actually a very good and quality starting quarterback and things like that. And you realize that Colt McCoy isn't that. You talk about his relationship that broke down with him and Kirk Cousins. Those were things that as time went on, you just saw that Jay was too busy thinking with his heart and not with his head or not even what was best for the Redskins. Not only that, you can see that he has such a relaxed environment at the Redskins park that even players started to talk about it. I mean, there are a lot of former players that talk about how relaxed the environment was when it came to Jay Gruden. One of them being DJ Swearinger. DJ Swearinger used to come out all the time and talk about how, coaches aren't tougher on the players and how it's too lenient and how they don't force players to play harder, how they don't sit up there and work out better and things like that. They don't practice as tough as they should. And then they released DJ Swearinger for that. It's one of those things that it's been the truth the whole time he's been here. I remember when Daron Payne was drafted and they interviewed Daron Payne and they asked him about the fact of, did he speak to Jonathan Allen already? And he said that, yeah, he spoke to him and Jonathan Allen told him, hey, look, check this. When you get here, understand that the environment here is totally different than what we're used to at Alabama. So you're going to have to come in here and you're really going to have to work your butt off and keep yourself in check because the environment is totally different than what we're used to at Alabama. That tells you that basically a guy who is technically a rookie himself is telling another rookie at how he needs to come into this environment and work hard just so he doesn't have a lapse in being a failed NFL player. So you got to think about that. Then you think about the fact that this year, Jonathan Allen and all them were talking about how they worked out together this whole offseason. The defensive line worked out together the whole offseason. So there could have been some element of them burning themselves out in the offseason, and then they come into the regular season because they knew it's so lenient here that they weren't going to get the same pressure and the same workout that they got themselves in the offseason. Even with that being said, Jay, yeah, he was a great person, but he wasn't a good head coach. Let me give y'all some numbers about what type of head coach he was. I mean, his overall record is 35-49-1. That's a very bad record to have when you're trying to make the playoffs every year. You're trying to be something better than what you should be and things like that. You're talking about he practically has almost an entire missing season when it comes to his overall record. I mean, he could have just basically went 1-15 according to his record. Then you think about the NFC alone. He has a losing record when it comes to the NFC. I mean, his record in the NFC is 28-38. So again, you're talking about that's a bad record to have when you're trying to make the playoffs. Then you think about the NFC East. His record in the NFC East is 12-21. You got to win the division to even come close to even sniffing the playoffs. So if you sit up there 28-38 in the NFC and you're 12-21 in your own division, you're never going to be any good, and you're never going to be that type of head coach that can do the things you need to do because of the fact that you're failing so much. Now, I want to get this out the way for some people as well. Sean McVeigh and Matt Lafleur were not coaches that Jay Gruden hired. Matt Lafleur and Sean McVeigh were coaches that were holdovers from when Mike Shanahan was the head coach. Sean McVeigh and Matt Lafleur were both coaches that Mike Shanahan brought in. And because of that, Mike Shanahan was the one who sat up there and brought these guys in. Now, they were here under Jay, but you got to also understand Sean McVeigh had been around coaching experience. They've been around, Sean McVeigh and Matt Lafleur been around head coaches that knew what they were doing. I mean, when you think about Sean McVeigh had tenure under John Gruden. Sean McVeigh had tenure under Mike Shanahan. I think Sean McVeigh had a short stint with New England, I think. But, I mean, he's been around winning head coaching. Then when you think about Matt LaFleur was around Mike Holmgren for all those years. He was with Mike McCarthy, and at the same time, he was under Mike Shanahan. So again, you're talking about two guys who have experience around winning head coaches. Now you bring in this guy, Kevin O'Connor, who people are saying could possibly be our next young head coach. I don't think that he's the guy to do it because he hasn't been around the type of winning head coaching that Matt LaFleur and Sean McVeigh were around. You know, Kevin O'Connor was in Cincinnati for a long period of time, and he was under Jay Gruden. So again, I don't think you really see that type of winning formula that Sean McVeigh and Matt LaFleur saw during their tenure under other head coaches. But I just want to say, people, you got to understand that Jay Gruden getting fired, that was the best thing, not only for this team, but also for him. Because he was not happy here. And we know that. We know he could probably be as competitive as you think he is, but he basically gave up. And we could see that he gave up. He was still calling plays. Like, there were times where he was being so blatantly defiant that he would just be calling plays just for the sake of calling plays. You know, or it looked like times where he would call a play and then Kevin O'Connor wasn't doing much of nothing, even though he was announced to be the offensive coordinator. Not only that, I mean, you have to really get the fact that a guy like Jay Gruden is not the head coach for the Washington Redskins. The Washington Redskins needed a guy that was more, they need a Bill Belichick type of guy. You need somebody that Fan Snyder is going to respect and Fan Snyder is going to take a back seat to, because at this current time, he hires people that basically yes man him. And because they yes man him, what happens is that there's always the point where always feels that he has some sort of power, even though he doesn't have enough football knowledge to really get the team in a winning position. Because understand this, the tenure of him being owner has been wrought with nothing but losing over and over again. Understand, our 20-year Super Bowl drought has been technically under him as owner. You got to realize that when you have an owner like that, you need somebody who's going to basically, he gets the respect from him, but at the same time, he takes a back seat. Kind of like what Robert Kraft does with Bill Belichick. Because he has to get out the way. And that's all I'm saying. Now, again, like I said, Jay Gruden is a phenomenal play designer. Give him that. Well, I ain't going to say phenomenal. He's a good play designer. But when it comes to decision making, he doesn't make the right decisions. And because of that, I'm going to say this. I get why he was fired. Yes, Jay Gruden probably was a great guy, but he was a terrible head coach. This has been your man, John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.